All right, my Algebra 2A peeps, we are starting Chapter 8, and as Mr. Boone likes to say, it is time to do some chunga chunga. So we're going to start working with rational expressions, where our x is going to be in our denominator. So what's going to come up big in this is do a lot of factoring, a lot of canceling out, and going from there. So if you remember, we're going to be looking at things like this, you know, where we could factor that, factor, and then cancel out what we can. Okay? So remember, if you can, you know, it's like reducing fractions. 9 over 24, you can take a 3 out of both of those, cancel the 3's, and it reduces to 3/8. That's essentially what we're going to be doing here. Okay? So 10x to the 8th over 6x to the 4th. Well, if you think about this, 10 over 6, what can I reduce that to? Well, that would be 5 over 3. Okay? Then I have an x to the 8th on the top and an x to the 4th on the bottom. Well, 8 is bigger than 4, which means I can get rid of all the x's on the bottom, subtract 4 from 8 on the top, and so that leaves me with my final answer of 5x to the 4th over 3. So you're just kind of reducing, canceling, dealing with reduction of fractions. Okay? What about if they give us like a polynomial function? Well, we're always going to do ones that we can factor. Okay? So if you factor, you should know how to factor by now. We got to factor the top and we got to factor the bottom. Okay? So on the top, we can say what multiplies to 2 but adds to negative 2 but adds up to positive 1. Well, that's going to be 2 and 1. Okay? So signs would be then x plus 2, x minus 1. That should get me what I need there. And then on the bottom, we're going to have an x and an x. And then we want to know what multiplies to 3 and adds to 2, where that's going to be 3 and 1. And then we need negative 3 and positive 2. So that's going to be plus 3 minus 1. After you factor it then, you can cancel out things that are the same. X minus 1, chunga chunga. Leaves me with my final answer of x plus 2 over x plus 3. Okay, so when you're multiplying, you can cancel out all that stuff, anything that's exactly the same. Now make sure you don't try to cancel out this x and this x, because those are attached together. So it's got to be, that's why we put it in parentheses. It's got to be the same in those parentheses to do that. Okay, let's try that again. 4x minus x squared. Yeah, never mind. Let's try it. Okay, so when you're multiplying, basically you're going to do the same thing that we were just doing. Okay, so if I look at this guy over here, since I'm multiplying, anything on the top and on the bottom is fair game. Well, that x and that x can cancel out. This is an x to the 7th and an x to the 4th. Well, the 7's bigger than the 4, so the 4's would all go away. We subtract 7 and we get 3. So now I'm just going to multiply across here. So we've got 20x to the 3rd over 15 times 2 is 30. So is there anything else that I can simplify there? 20 over 30 is the same thing as 2 over 3. So a final answer of 2x cubed over 3. Okay? Let's try another one like that, except this time it'll be some factoring of some binomials and trinomials. So I like to put anything in parentheses that's already factored, good to go. What can I get out of both a 10 and a 40? I can get a 10. So if I pull a 10 out, what's left in there is x minus 4. Okay? And I'm going to factor this bottom one. What multiplies to 8, positive 8, but adds up to negative 6. That sounds like minus 4, minus 2 to me. Okay? Then I'm going to factor over here. I can pull a 5 out of both of those terms. And when I do that, I get x plus 3. If I was to distribute that through, I would get this. Okay? So we're just doing factoring, things that we've done before. Then you look at it. Anything that's on the top can be chunga chunga with anything that's on the bottom. So I've got an x minus 4 here and here. It goes away. I've got an x plus 3 here and here. it goes away. On the top now, all we have left is 10. Well, I have a 10 on the top and a 5 on the bottom. Well, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so the 5 goes away, and that turns into a 2. 10 over 5 is the same thing as 2 over 1. When I look, all I have left across the top is 2 over, all I have left on the bottom is x minus 2. Okay? So that's how you chunga and you multiply and divide rational expressions. Pretty fun stuff, huh? If you can factor, it's pretty easy. If you can't, you got to work at it. Look at those examples and try. Okay, last thing I'll talk about today is division. So when we divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So I always like to rewrite when I'm dividing, so if you're going to take a half divided by 3/4, that's the same thing as 1/2 times 4/3. You take the reciprocal of what you're dividing by. So let's look at a couple of these. 5x to the 4th. So when you're dividing, it's just best to rewrite it. So we have 5x to the 4th over 8x squared y squared divided by, which means times, I got to do the reciprocal. 8y to the 5th over 15. Okay, so now I can start, canceling out. These are single x's. I have a y to the 2nd here and a y to the 5th, so that would go away, and that becomes a 3. I have an x to the 2nd and an x to the 4th. The smaller one goes away, and that subtracts and becomes a 2. Numbers, we got an 8 here and an 8 there, so those would cancel out. And then we've got a 5 and a 15. 5's on the top, 15's on the bottom, so the 5 cancels, and that turns into a 3. So all we're left with there is x squared y cubed over 3. Okay? This is a little bit tricky, but we're going to get some practice. And you just have to know how to, if you can factor, it's pretty easy. And your exponent rules and all that stuff. I encourage you to look in the online book and look at the examples that they've done of the things that we're doing as we go through the worksheet. Also on the worksheet, you'll have the key so you can kind of see how Mr. Woolmuth did. Okay? All right, let's try one more up here. Let's try number 10 right here. So we have x squared minus 16 times all that, so we're going to factor. So that's a difference of squares, so that's going to be x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay? Down here, I have to figure out what multiplies to 4 and adds to negative 4. Well, that's x minus 2 and x minus 2. And then over here, I got to figure out what multiplies to positive 8 but adds to positive 6. Well, that's an easy one. That's plus 4 plus 2. Okay? Then you chunga what you can. Okay? I got an x minus 2 here and 1 here. I got an x plus 4 here and 1 here. That's all we can do, guys. So we leave it. So on the top, what I have left is x minus 4. And on the bottom, I have x minus 2 times x plus 2. And that's how you leave your answers. Okay? All right, let's try one more divide. We'll go through number 12. So we're going to take x plus 3 over that divided by. So remember, that's by multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to change that to the reciprocal. I'm going to scratch that out so we don't get confused. So you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? Then you factor over here. Well, what multiplies to 1 but adds to negative 2? That's x minus 1 times x minus 1. Everything's factored, and now we chunga what we can. I'm going to cancel out the x plus 3 on the top and the bottom, and 1 of the x minus 1s on the top and on the bottom. We have nothing left on the top, which means it's 1, because that's all that's left. And then on the bottom, we're left with x minus 1. So that would be your final answer. Okay, so this is simplifying, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions. You get a little extra practice with the worksheet. You got examples in the textbook. And you can always email Mr. Woolmuth if you need a little bit of help. All right, hope you guys are having a great day. We will see you again for 8-3 soon.